During an animal health emergency, hazards from zoonotic diseases or chemical exposures may occur. The use of personal protective equipment, or PPE, can protect you from these exposures and help prevent the further spread of pathogens to other animals, personnel, or premises. This just-in-time training presentation will overview the use of PPE and proper donning and doffing procedures. Safety considerations while wearing PPE will also be addressed. The phrase personal protective equipment refers to special clothing and equipment designed to act as a barrier between an individual and a hazard, such as a zoonotic or highly contagious pathogen. PPE includes items to protect the eyes, face, respiratory tract, hands, body, feet, head, and ears. This photo shows a veterinarian is wearing a variety of PPE items: a tear-resistant suit, a disposable respirator, and chemical-resistant gloves. He is also putting on goggles. Personal protective equipment serves two purposes: to protect the responder against potentially life-threatening hazards such as zoonotic diseases or chemical exposures, and to prevent the spread of disease agents between animals and locations. Both of these purposes must be taken into consideration when selecting PPE. The complex process of PPE selection for potential disease exposures must include consideration of the zoonotic and biosecurity risks. Animal diseases that threaten human health are referred to as zoonotic, and the action taken to prevent the spread of disease to other animals or location is referred to as biosecurity. The zoonotic and biosecurity risks can be divided into low, moderate, and high risks. Where the zoonotic risk of a disease is greater than its biosecurity risk, zoonotic risks take precedence. Table 1 illustrates this concept. This table converts the various combinations of zoonotic and biosecurity risks into low, moderate, and high risk categories and provides an example of a disease that falls into each category. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, classifies as PPE into 4 levels of protection: A, B, C, and D. Level D is the lowest level of protection, while Level A is the highest level of protection. This table shows the PPE levels and equipment appropriate to provide that level of protection. Level D, the lowest level of protection, consists of a basic work uniform and disposable gloves. It would be used for situations of a known hazard with no risk of skin contamination, inhalation threat, or risk of hazardous material contact. Level C is used when the concentration and types of airborne substances is known. The use of chemical-resistant items are added to allow for disinfection purposes following activities. Face and respiratory protection, such as air-purifying respirators, are also used. General agreement exists that Level C PPE would be adequate protection for veterinary responders in most situations. This level would be recommended when responding to an event such as highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreak. Level B is used when the highest level of respiratory protection is necessary, but a lesser level of skin protection is needed than in Level A, such as for a Nipah virus outbreak. At this level, a self-contained breathing apparatus would be necessary. Level A is the level of protection selected when the greatest level of skin, respiratory, and eye protection is required, such as when responding to a large chlorine spill. The use of a totally encapsulating chemical protective suit would be used. Upon arriving at the premises, veterinary responders should follow premises-specific protocols and biosecurity procedures. Designated work zones are established to help protect responders and prevent the accidental spread of any hazards. Donning and doffing of PPE within areas of these work zones will be required. The hot zone or exclusion zone is the potentially contaminated or unsafe area, the infected animal premises. Appropriate PPE must be worn in this area. The warm zone, or contamination reduction zone, is also considered a high-risk area due to the potential for exposure to pathogens and chemical disinfectants. All personnel are required to wear PPE. The decontamination, or decon corridor, is the area between the hot zone and the warm zone. Decontamination of personnel and disinfection of equipment occurs here. Entry and exit into the hot zone occurs through control access points along this corridor. Once responders have doffed, disinfected, and decontaminated in the warm zone, they should move to the cold zone or support zone through the designated access points. The cold zone, or support zone, is the clean, uncontaminated area of the site, where responders should not be exposed to hazardous conditions. Support functions are based here. Donning of PPE prior to entry into the hot zone occurs here. The terms donning and doffing are often used with PPE. Donning is the procedure for assembling PPE on the user, and doffing is the procedure for removal of PPE. Responders should only don PPE for which they have been thoroughly trained, medically cleared to use, and fit tested to wear. Level C protection is adequate for most biological exposures that could potentially occur in an animal health emergency, including highly pathogenic avian influenza. Therefore, the donning and doffing process for Level C PPE will be described on the following pages. Safe and effective donning and doffing of Level C or higher PPE requires assistance, so the buddy system should always be used. Wearing PPE can create responder hazards such as heat stress, physical and psychological stress, impaired vision, movement, and communication. When involved in an incident response, a responder's time in PPE should be limited to maintain responder safety. Responders must be aware of their physical abilities and overall health when engaging in activities requiring PPE. Before donning PPE, make sure you have all the needed supplies. This should include blunt nose scissors, 2 pairs of gloves at minimum, a 2-piece scrub suit, long socks, a Tyvek or similar suit with boot pouches and a hood, steel-toed rubber boots, an N95 respirator or reusable air purifying respirator, goggles, biohazard bags, and any supplies you will need to perform the tasks on site. In a changing room or other suitable place in the cold zone, lay out PPE items and prepare to don following these steps. Measure and cut a supply of chemical-resistant tape long enough to fit all junctions of the suit and the facepiece. Cut several extra pieces in case one accidentally sticks to itself and becomes unusable. Put tabs on the end of the tape to assist with removal. Remove the Tyvek or similar suit from the cellophane wrapping. Inspect all PPE items for any damage, tears, rips, or other imperfections. This should be done before donning, as well as during and after each use. Ensure you have the necessary safety features and devices needed for your assigned activity. After putting on a clean 2-piece scrub suit, begin the donning process by pulling on the chemical-resistant suit. Next, step into chemical-resistant boots, being careful not to trip or fall down. Pull on disposable boot covers if necessary. Pull on a pair of latex or nitrile gloves, followed by an outer layer of chemical-resistant gloves. This double-layered protection provides safety against the majority of hazards. Using the buddy system, wrap chemical-resistant tape around the top of the boots, around the junction of the protective coveralls, and around each wrist at the junction of the glove and coverall cuff. This will help to ensure no fluid enters from the outside. 1 to 3 turns should be sufficient. Leave a tab on the tape end to help when doffing. When taping, be sure to leave enough give to bend and walk and to prevent ripping. Next, put on the assigned air purifying respirator for which you have been medically cleared and fit tested for. Using the buddy system, conduct a check to ensure that your APR seals properly. If the proper fit cannot be achieved, do not enter the area where protection is required. Next, put on goggles if eye protection is not provided by your air purifying respirator. Take care not to disrupt the respirator seal. Pull the hood of your chemical-resistant suit up over your head, being sure to completely cover your hair and ears. Zip up the suit completely and seal the length of its zipper with chemical-resistant tape. If a facepiece is worn, tape seal around the facepiece and the suit junction. Make sure the tape is centered along each junction. Enter the work area and perform the necessary duties. After response tasks are completed, responders should begin doffing PPE upon leaving the hot zone. When doffing PPE, it is important to take precautions and to follow proper procedure to ensure contaminants are not carried or spread off the premises. Use of the buddy system can aid in safely and easily removing PPE. Doffing begins in the hot zone or exclusion zone by dry brushing off the exterior of PPE. Scrub organic debris off the bottom of boots. Enter the warm zone to continue the doffing procedure. Remove all chemical-resistant tape from your suit and dispose of it in the proper provided container. Spray the exterior of PPE with an appropriate disinfectant product. Remove the outer layer of chemical-resistant gloves. Unzip your chemical-resistant suit. Remove the hood by reaching inside the hood and rolling it back carefully, touching only the inside surface. This may be easier with the assistance of a team member. Pull the suit off your shoulders and pull it down, turning it inside out as you go to prevent contamination. Carefully remove disposable boot covers. Scrub your chemical-resistant boots with disinfectant. Next, remove the chemical-resistant suit completely and carefully step out of it. Remove the air-purifying respirator and the inner layer of gloves in this order to prevent contaminating your hands. Dispose of all doffed PPE in proper containers provided in the cold zone. Place air-purifying respirators in the proper container for decontamination and reuse. Take care to prevent contamination during doffing procedures, even at lower levels. After doffing all PPE, wash hands thoroughly. Take a complete shower and change to clean clothes. Inspect under fingernails and blow your nose to clear your respiratory passages. This should be done immediately after leaving the infected or exposed area and before visiting public places. While personal protective equipment can prevent exposure to aerosols, direct contact, and injections, there are certain precautions and limitations that must be considered. Evaluate the proper fit on a frequent basis. To prevent exposure and contamination, never eat, drink, smoke, apply cosmetics or lip balm, or handle contact lenses while wearing PPE. Don and doff PPE in the proper order to prevent contamination. Always wash hands immediately after removing PPE. Protective clothing and respiratory protection can be insulating, so take measures to prevent heat stress. Information provided in this presentation was developed for the Information provided in this presentation was developed by the Center for Food Security and Public Health at Iowa State University's College of Veterinary Medicine through funding through the Multi-State Partnership for Security in Agriculture.